Thank you very much, Christina. Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, as we gather today to mark DCAF 25th anniversary, the world looks very different than it did when our organization was established by the Swiss Confederation. 25 years ago, DCAF was envisioned as part of Switzerland's contribution to the NATO Partnership for Peace program, which aimed to strengthen regional stability, facilitate defense cooperation and reform, and improve civil preparedness. A few years before, the wars in the Balkans and genocide in Rwanda pushed the international community to rethink what security means, exposing the limitation of the traditional military-centered definition of security and renewing effort to prevent mass atrocities and protect human rights. Facing new threats and interlocking security, political, and climate crises, it may feel like we have come full circle or even taken a step back. Devastating wars in Gaza, Ukraine, and Sudan have caused many to wonder how our systems of international law and human rights, built over decades, could be so easily disregarded. I think it is important to acknowledge the deep uncertainty of the current moment. We live in a time of shifting geopolitics, rapidly evolving new technologies, unseen algorithms that shape our world, massive increases in defense spending, and continued cuts to development and humanitarian aid budgets. We know that we are not going back to the way things were, but we are not sure yet what the future will look like. In such an environment, it can appear hard to know where to focus our attention, what matters most, and where our scarce resources can best be used. This is why I want to begin today by talking about what we know is important and what we know works. First, we know that there is no state security without human security. This is critical to remember at a time when attention and resources increasingly seem to be pulled back to hard security and defense. We see time and again that deficit in human security undermine national security. Think, for example, about the rise of violent extremism, fueled by the failure of government to meet basic human security needs of local communities. What begins as a localized problem becomes a militant threat, overwhelming state security forces. This pattern repeats as we see transnational organized crime networks operating as alternatives to governments. We cannot forget that what we have learned about the importance of human security and people-centered approaches. Second, governance matters and is key to security. Around the world, communities and civil society organizations continue to demand accountable, transparent governance, exposing corruption and abuse at considerable risk for themselves and their networks. Younger generation and marginalized communities are calling for inclusion and solidarity and finding new ways to work together. We are regularly reminded that institutions that cater only to the most powerful are neither effective nor sustainable. There is no single or perfect pathway to better governance. No democratic government became what it is overnight. And today we are reminded that democracy and good governance can never be taken for granted. Supporting our partners in this endeavor requires long-term commitment, adaptability, and a willingness to take risk. Let's be clear, we need to make our case stronger that governance, and not hardware, is the real multiplier of security effectiveness. Third, relationships are at the heart of system change. This is why DCAF tends to take a sector-wide approach, building bridges among different actors in the system. This includes strengthening the ability of communities to articulate their security needs, building the capacity of civil society organizations to demand these needs be met, working with oversight actors, including the media and parliamentary committees, to improve accountability, and of course, accompanying security institutions themselves in undertaking reforms that can ultimately make them more responsive to community needs. It is a complex approach, and one that takes time. As we know from our experience, it needs flexibility and constant adapting, and then it delivers results. It all comes down to trust, and trust needs to be earned. Fourth, and this is related, we know that what works includes acknowledging one another as human beings, deserving of respect and empathy. Respect for human rights must begin within security institutions themselves, in how personnel are treated, supported, and led, if we expect them to uphold those same rights outside in the community they serve. Sometimes it can be challenging to explain what security sector governance is or what it entails. At the same time, it is simple, it is clear. It is about having a security sector, the police, the gendarmerie, or the army, that serves the people. Inclusivity is key. When people see themselves represented in the force that protect them, these forces become more trusted, more accountable, and more respectful of the communities they serve. Ladies and gentlemen, security belongs to everyone. Unfortunately, we are facing a troubling paradox. Greater demand, a governance crisis, and declining funding. We see every day a bigger demand for security governance from our partners and elsewhere to rebuild trust and prevent crisis. Context facing a crisis of governance where state institutions suffer from weak oversight, corruption, and lack of transparency are numerous, while development assistance for security governance has been trending downward. We also know that without proper governance, security investment may backfire. As a result, conflict prevention is at risk. We are faced with trust deficit and instability. It is therefore time to reflect and rethink our approach. This is why it is so important to hear from our partners what is efficient security governance and why it matters. In the panels today, our speaker will help us consider how democratic governance can be leveraged to create security and peace for all, why challenging conventional model may be key to transformation in the Middle East, and why our system remains stubbornly resistant to the inclusive approaches we know are most effective and sustainable. These issues are critical for DCAF and indeed for the future of security governance. Yet they are only part of our broader work to make state and people safer. At DCAF, we have the specificity to work on all levels, bringing together strategic and operational advice, policy research and influence in discussion and norm setting. In Ukraine, our partners live with the daily realities of conflict, but are still making concrete progress in strengthening security sector governance as a key pillar of future peace. In the Sahel, our partners are contributing to concrete improvement in security sector accountability and responsiveness, demonstrating the value of focusing on governance, even in the most complex and volatile context. In Latin America, our work to build bridges between the police and journalists is gradually improving transparency and strengthening relationship at a time when civic space is under threat. Across Asia, our network of security sector experts is contributing to key dialogues, keeping good governance of security on national and regional agendas. We continue to work with multilateral partners in the UN system and beyond, reinforcing critical agenda, sharing learning from the field, and championing values and rights-based approaches with gender equality at the core. We also recognize the private sector as a key partner, one that has a major stake in security, from due diligence of business operation in conflict context to the widespread role of private military and security companies. Our work offers an important entry point, not only for improving accountability, but also for engaging a wider network of stakeholders to shape security and peace. I want to conclude by emphasizing the importance of partnership and participation. At a time when so much is changing, none of us have all the answers. It is critical that we do not work in isolation. By working together, we see more, we learn more, we adapt and evolve more quickly. We all have a role to play. We know that democracy and social cohesion can backslide. It is only through active participation that our systems remain vibrant. The title of the conference includes Words in Action. I invite you to participate actively today in reflecting with DCAF about what it takes to build the future of security governance. In closing, I want to thank our partners in the field, in capitals, and here in Geneva for your confidence and for making our work possible. A special thanks goes to Switzerland, who has been a steadfast supporter of DCAF since day one. And the pioneer spirit of DCAF founders 25 years ago was remarkable and is still guiding us today. Finally, my gratitude goes to our teams as DCAF, whose motivation and commitments are simply incredible. To all of you, thank you for your presence. I wish you an inspired day of discussion and encounters.